much for joining today. My name is Michelle and I am the founder of the TravNav, which is a luxury travel blog where I provide you tips and tricks for travel. I give you destinations to travel to and itineraries and things of that nature to get you all excited about traveling. And I know a lot of us are not traveling right now, so I thought that I would create a series where I can bring a taste of vacation to your home. And the purpose of this series is to help remind us and to inspire you to travel when you feel like the time is right. And one of the ways in which we can do that is through food and through drinks and through cocktails. And so far I started this series and we've had 3 episodes so far. Our first episode was we made the DoubleTree chocolate chip cookies, and it's their signature recipe, and the cookies were amazing. I made 26 cookies, and I think my husband and I ate probably half of them within the first weekend or so. We just loved the recipe so much. So that one was great. And then the second one was last week where we made watermelon margaritas, and that was inspired by the La Valencia Hotel in La Jolla. The outside of the hotel is pink, and it's referred to as the Pink Lady. So that's how we got to our watermelon margarita. So today, in our 3rd episode, I asked you guys if you wanted to make a fall cocktail or if you were interested in making a cocktail inspired by Halloween. And almost 2 to 1, you guys said that you wanted a fall cocktail. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We are going to be making a fall cocktail. So originally, I planned to do the beatnik cocktail from the Ritz-Carlton in Half Moon Bay. For those of you who don't know, Half Moon Bay is near San Francisco, California. And I was really excited about it. And so I started making the cocktail earlier today as a preparation just to make sure I knew how to make it before we started on live. And I ran into a few problems. This particular cocktail calls for muddling of peaches. And so I cut up my peach and I really tried muddling, and after about 10 minutes of muddling, I figured, okay, wait, this is just not working, something's going wrong. So I decided to put it in the Cuisinart. I probably should have tried the blender, but I tried the Cuisinart instead, and I was able to get the peach down to something respectable. So then I tried muddling again. So then I added in the other ingredients, which were beet juice. It was a whiskey cocktail and some agave. I mixed it all up, and I had this cocktail and I was ready to try it, except for that when I went to try it, there were a lot of things floating in it because the cocktail wasn't muddled enough. Hi! And so I didn't want to serve you guys, and I didn't want to give you a cocktail that I had so much trouble making. So just so you know, this is what the beatnik cocktail does look like. I don't know if you can see. It actually doesn't taste so bad, but the fact that I had so much trouble making it is probably one of the reasons why they have one of their excellent bartenders at the Ritz-Carlton in Half Moon Bay making the cocktail instead of someone like me who is not great at cocktails but is learning and trying to make it and bring it to you. So instead of making this beatnik cocktail, I decided on a plan B. So our plan B is going to be, this is our old-fashioned apple cider. I don't know if everyone can see. And it has a little cinnamon stick and apple in it. It tastes pretty good. Probably better with a straw, but it does taste delicious. I do like to have a drink every once in a while I'm actually cooking. I find things tend to go just a little bit better. And this recipe comes to us from the Montage Deer Valley. It is a very easy recipe to make. And so I thought that way I would bring you something where I knew you guys could all make it at home. It'd be really easy and you'd be really happy with it. So I don't know if any of you have been to Deer Valley or Park City before, but it's in Utah. And the area is just beautiful. I love to hike, and it's a great place to go visit where you can just get outside. I spent days and days hiking. We'd go out from the back of our hotel at the St. Regis, and we'd just go out for a couple hours, come back. You could go out in the afternoon again. The city is just great, and I wrote a whole blog post about Park City and Deer Valley, and you can read more about that at my blog, on my blog, and that's thetravnav.com. So without further ado, let's get started, and we will be making this delicious apple cider old fashioned. So the first thing that we want to do is you need your glass. And these glasses are actually my husband's grandmother's glasses. They're etched with his grandmother and his grandfather's initials. They're really pretty. So the first thing we're going to do is, this is a bourbon cocktail. So we are going to take our bourbon. So today we will be using our Maker's Mark. And we need 1.5 ounces of bourbon. So an easy way to measure an ounce is by a shot glass. And I have this handy dandy trusty tool right here. And with this tool, the top part is 1 ounce, and the bottom part, the smaller one's 1/2 ounce. So it makes it really easy for me to be able to measure for you guys. So we're going to take the first ounce of Maker's Mark bourbon. I'm gonna pour it over the sink just so I make sure I get it all good. And then I'm just gonna flip it over, and now I have my 1/2 ounce. Thanks everyone for showing up. I really appreciate it. It's nice to have so much support. You guys are all wonderful, and I really appreciate it. All right, so now we have our 1.5 ounces of bourbon. It's a fair amount. And then the next thing that we're going to need to do is we're gonna need 1/2 ounce of simple syrup. I actually, if you were on last week, you know that I'm not a huge fan of simple syrup. It's just a little bit too sugary for me. So instead, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to use just agave. You can pick up agave anywhere. You can sub it out for simple syrup, and it's just that easy. So for this recipe, all we need is 1/2 ounce of simple syrup. So I take my same trusty tool again, just use the smaller side. Squeeze in our agave till it's full. Almost full, there we go. And then just pour it in just like that. Now we have our 1/2 ounce of simple syrup. The next thing we need to do is we need to add 2 dashes of bitters. And this is the bitters that it suggests. It's kind of hard to see because there's a little bit of a glare, but this is the bitters from the recipe. So now we just take 2 dashes of this. Whoops, there we go. Maybe a little extra for good measure, just because some hit the outside of the glass. So this is just, like I said, this is a super easy cocktail. And our last ingredient is gonna be 2 ounces of cold pressed barn apple cider. So I found this cold pressed apple cider today at Ralph's, so easy to get in every grocery store. So first thing you have to do is you have to shake it really well. Okay, now that it's shaken really well, we are going to take our handy dandy tool again, and I'm going to pour 2 of the large size again, because that would be our ounces. So that's our 1st ounce, and this is our 2nd ounce. Whoops. All right, so now we have 2 ounces. I did spill a little bit, but that's okay. So now we have our 2 ounces. And now we're supposed to stir it. So getting it nice and stirred. So it's a little warm, so the next thing we're going to want to do is add ice. The noise, you can't see it, but it is it's an ice bucket down below. So now I have all my ice, just like this. So this is our cocktail, but it's not done yet because every cocktail needs to be pretty. So in this cocktail, the 2 ways that we make this cocktail pretty are by adding a little bit of apple on the side and by adding a cinnamon stick. So the cinnamon stick is really easy. I just take out my jar of cinnamon sticks, grab one. It smells so sweet and just amazing and very fall-like. So I drop it in. I try to put it on the ice a little bit so that way it stays. Let's see if you can see this. So there's our cinnamon stick. And then I'm just gonna reach over and grab an apple. So I have my apple here, I already cut part of it just to make this a little easier. And now I'm gonna just cut down and make, we can't see because my cocktail. So now I'm just gonna cut a slice here. So now I have my apple slice. I'll cut it in half. I'll cut the middle part out just because it's not so great. And now I have my 2 handy dandy little slices. And I will just drop them on the side next to my cinnamon stick. This is the hardest part of the whole cocktail, is getting everything to line up. So I lost my cinnamon stick, but it is in my cocktail. And this is your apple cider old-fashioned cocktail. And let me taste it for good measure. This one is really good. I'm not a huge fan of bourbon, but it is actually delicious. The funny thing is I don't even like apple cider. I'm not a huge fan of apples either, but for some reason it's just the sweet and tanginess of the bourbon along with the apple and the cold press and the bitters. It just all tastes so good. So yum, just delicious. So this was our fall cocktail today. What I'd like to do next, because we have a fall cocktail, but I also thought it might be fun to do something a little bit towards Halloween, so I thought I'd make another cocktail that's really easy. So cheers. This is our fall cocktail. And next I'm going to transition to something that I think is also delicious. It's a little sweet. It's called the Dark and Stormy. It's also another cocktail that I love. So I hope you guys can stick around for our next cocktail, but if you can't, I just appreciate you guys showing up today. Don't forget to check out my blog at thetravnav.com, and let's get started on our second cocktail. All right, so I'm gonna put this one down. I now have 3 cocktails that are lining my counter. You can't really see them, but there are a lot of cocktails going on around here, so there'll be a lot to drink when this live is over. Okay, so I'm gonna move my apple away and some of my utensils. Just drop them in the sink. I'm going to find, don't know what this cap was for, but oh, here it goes. It goes back on our cinnamon spice sticks. Get rid of this. All right, so moving on to our next cocktail. So the Dark and Stormy is really easy, and this one also is inspired by another hotel. This was I had at the St. Regis in Kauai, and it is a delicious, delicious cocktail. And I'll give you just the quick backstory on why I love these cocktails and how I came to find them. So we were staying at the St. Regis in Kauai, and my husband and I decided that we should go paddleboarding. And I'm not an expert paddleboarder, but I thought, hey, sure, let's give it a try. But I also am not great in the water. I'm a fine swimmer, no problem, but the ocean sometimes and I don't always get along. But I decided, no problem, we'll throw caution to the wind. So we got on our paddleboards and we start paddling. Well, as it turns out, the wind picked up and I had a really hard time controlling my paddleboard. And I started drifting towards a reef. Now, in my mind, the reef was like, I could almost reach out and touch it. It was so close. But in reality, the reef was really far away, but all I could see was the reef and the waves crashing on it, and I had a panic attack. And I'd never had a panic attack in my life. I've been fortunate that it never happened to me. Fortunately, it hasn't happened since, but I had a full-on panic attack. And so, like, my heart was racing, and so my husband was nice enough, he is a good guy, he actually towed my paddleboard with me on it back to shore, because I just was not doing well. And the first thing we did was went to the bar, because, you know, I figured that would be a good idea. So at the bar, they had these Dark and Stormy, so I thought, okay, I'll have one just to calm my nerves, just to have a reset, see if everything will work out. And so I had a Dark and Stormy, and then I had 2 Dark and Stormies, and I may have even had 3, which made for a very interesting night. I did a lot of walking to keep myself upright because I had so many to drink, but that this drink has stuck with me. It's always been one of my favorites. It's a delicious, delicious drink. So let's get started making the Dark and Stormy. So first thing you're gonna want, in this case, I like to use a copper mug. So I'm gonna fill this with ice. Take my ice bucket. Okay, a little bit of a malfunction, but that's okay. So I'm gonna pour some ice in here. I'm just gonna fill it all the way up. All right, so now I have my copper mug with ice. And The next thing I'm going to do is you need a spiced rum. So this is the spiced rum that we have in the house, so I'm going to use this one. And my husband says to use, I'm getting out he wrote down the recipe for me because he remembered it and I clearly did not. But he says that you use about a 3-second pour for the spiced rum. I don't know if I would use as much, but that's what he likes to use. So we're going to use, so we'll do 1, 2, and 3. So that is all of our spiced rum. We finished the bottle, so woohoo! 1 bottle down. I always like to be able to buy a new one. That's fun. Okay, so now we have our spiced rum. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to use ginger beer. There's lots of different types of ginger beer. I'm going to be using just Trader Joe's ginger beer, and this will be the hardest trick for me. I'm not much of a beer drinker, so I rarely open bottles, but success, I did it. So what you do is you take the ginger beer and you fill it almost all the way to the top, but not all the way. You still want to leave a little bit of room. So it's a good amount of ginger beer. You can see a good portion of the bottle has been used. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to need lime. So I have my lime right here and my trusty knife. So cut my lime in half. Whoa, almost lost the cocktail because the knife is so big. Right. You can use lime juice if you have it in your refrigerator, but I like to use fresh lime instead. It just tastes better. So here we go. So I'm just gonna take the lime juice and squeeze some in. Hopefully you guys can see. So there's just half a lime, which is more than enough for this, just 1 cocktail. Put my lime juicer in the sink. And then the next thing we're gonna do is we need about he says about 1.5 seconds of pour of dark rum, which would translate to about an ounce and a half of a dark rum. So I have a dark old rum here. So this is the one that we'll be using today. And we'll just pour 1.5. And that would be our Dark and Stormy. Just give it a little, wash that spoon off because we don't want the other cocktail in it. Give it a little swirl right here. And cheers, give this one a taste. This is really good too. So I know what I will be doing the rest of the afternoon. I don't know what you guys will be doing, but I have multiple cocktails here that I will be enjoying this afternoon. It's perfect time, it's happy hour. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. It's been really fun. I like being able to bring a taste of vacation into your home. I would love it if you could send me a message or check me out at my blog at thetravnav.com, and you can email me there and let me know what you would like to see next week. If you would like me to bring another cocktail to you, a food item, if you want tips and tricks for traveling, or what it's like to travel during COVID at this time. I would really love to hear from you. And then if you wanted to check out more on what it was like to be in Half Moon Bay or Park City, you can also visit my blog at thetravnav.com. And feel free to DM me and let me know, just what your thoughts are. This has been really fun. Once I hear from you guys, keep an eye out for a poll so that I can keep getting your input, so I know exactly what it is that you want to see. So thanks again for joining. If you're making the cocktails, don't drink and drive. Remember to stay safe, and cheers.